Thank you so very much for joining us here this morning on the eve of World Down Syndrome Awareness Day. Tomorrow is World Down Syndrome Awareness Day everywhere in the world. It's a day where advocates for those with Down syndrome come together with one united voice to fight for the rights, inclusion, and the positive well-being of people with Down syndrome. The date for Down Syndrome Day is the 21st day in the third month here in March. The date was selected to signify the uniqueness of the triplication of the 21st chromosome, which causes Down syndrome. Now later today, my good friend, Representative Jim Marshall, who is here with us today, will be bringing up a resolution honoring World Down Syndrome Day here in Pennsylvania. Today we are joined by individuals, families, advocates, and members of the House and the Senate to celebrate the lives of those living around the world and here in Pennsylvania with Down syndrome, and to advocate for the passage of the Down Syndrome Protection Act that Speaker Mike Turzai, who is here with us today, and I will be sponsoring in the House, and our good friend Senator Scott Martin in the Senate. Thank you so very much for joining us today. We are also here with the PA Catholic Conference, the PA Family Council, the PA Pro-Life Federation, and so many other advocacy organizations on this issue. But the special guests here today are those families and individuals who are truly showing us that we can live amazing lives with Down syndrome. We have today Makayla Holmgren and her parents Sandy and Craig, Kurt Condrich and her parent, Kurt Condrich and Chloe, including Chloe's mom, Margie, who's here, Jessica Capitani and her son, Caden, Tamara Singleton and her son, Devin, and Cassandra Collins and her mom, Sharon. We are here today to ensure that every human life has dignity and worth, especially those with Down syndrome. Today we stand with these perfectly imperfect individuals and support their lives and the lives of unborn babies with Down syndrome and those who have a Down syndrome diagnosis. First up on our list of amazing speakers today is Makayla Holmgren. Makayla comes to us from the state of Minnesota, and she clearly demonstrates that those with Down syndrome can do some pretty awesome things. Her smile and her excitement for life are contagious. As you can tell, she has bright pink on today. She is just ever the optimist. She was the first woman with Down syndrome to compete in any pageant across the United States, in the Miss USA state pageant in Minnesota, where she won the Miss Congeniality Award and the Spirit of Miss USA Award. She is spunky, and she describes herself as having just a little Down syndrome on the side. She is a model, a speaker, a Best Buddies ambassador, and truly the best self-advocate anyone could ask for. She inspires us every day with her dancing and clearly has not let Down syndrome get in her way from achieving great things. Makayla.
Hi everyone. My name is Makayla Holmgren. Thank you for inviting me here today. I am here today to be a voice for those who cannot speak. I am here to stand for those not yet born with Down syndrome. Psalm 139:13 says, "You created every part of me. You put me together in my mother's womb." I am here to tell you that these world is better with people who have Down syndrome. I have Down syndrome, but it was not stop me from living a life with a purpose. When I was born 6 weeks early, the doctors said that I may never walk or talk. And I proved them wrong. I am here to tell you what my life is like. At a young age, I found my passion for dance. I have been part of dance groups, my high school pom team, cheer squads, and my college team. I choreograph my own dances. I take these dances to competitions and have won many awards. I have trained on point, ballet, jazz, and lyrical and hip hop. I have even traveled to Haiti to teach dance to orphans. I perform galas and special events. And I dance to the Best Buddies Conference in honor of 2 Best Buddy students who were killed in Parkland High School last year. But I also love doing gymnastics. Usually I go with my dad. And this year, I am going to track and field with Special Olympics. I am a college graduate. When I was young, I dreamed of going to the same college as my parents. And I have my uncles and my aunts and a whole family related to Bethel University College. That dream come true when I was accepted into the Bethel University Build program. I live on campus and learn skills to help me to live on my own and to prepare me for a job. I graduated from Bethel with a degree in education. I recently started a job as a teacher's aide in preschool. I help the little ones to learn their ABCs, arts, and crafts, and snacks. It's so much fun. I love working with children and being a part of their learning skills to work on your skills are. I am ambassador and board member for Best Buddies. I am helping to bring then a program to Minnesota. I am a history maker. In 2017, I am become my first woman with Down syndrome to run for a state Miss USA Pageant. This was my home state of Minnesota. Before I went on the stage, I texted my mom that I was going to be awareness for those with special needs. I did not win the title, but I won so much more. I won the Spirit of USA Award and the Director's Awards and Miss Jenny Award. won the hearts of my sister queens. I also gave hope to families that I have loved ones with Down syndrome. I was able to show the world that people with Down syndrome have blue teeth that starts from inside out. Having Down syndrome does not stop me from living and going after your dreams. But people with Down syndrome can do so much. I have friends that have their own businesses. So some friends are TV shows, like stars, and some are models. And some are working jobs where they are making difference. There are countries that are getting rid of people like me because they see me as less than human being. One time in history, it was believed that an entire race was 3 and 5 of a person. I want to tell you today that I am not a fraction of a person. I am a whole person made in the image of God with dreams and passions and abilities. I am a history maker and I want more history to be made. That if there was no more history to be made, that would this world be like throughout the lights and shines through those with Down syndrome. That is not the road that I will to live in. If the bill is not passed, myself and others like me will not have a choice in the matter. Today, I am asking you to pass this bill and make history with me to make a brighter tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Way to go, Makayla. You brought that ever optimistic attitude to share your story. And with that, I would like to introduce our House Speaker Mike Turzai, who is the prime sponsor with me on the Down Syndrome Protection Act that Makayla was advocating for. Speaker Turzai is one of our tireless advocates here in the House for the unborn. Speaker Turzai.
Hey, thank you much, Kate. Thank you, dear. Representative Klunk, thank you for your courage and your leadership in moving House Bill 321 forward. And thank you to everybody here today in support of the Down Syndrome Protection Act. Now more than ever, babies born with Down syndrome have the opportunity to live long, happy, and productive lives. Life expectancy for folks with Down syndrome has increased dramatically in recent decades. People with Down syndrome are members of the community in which they live and share their gifts and make positive contributions in society every day. The accomplishments and successes of adults with Down syndrome sends a clear message of hope to children also living with Down syndrome. The fact of the matter is, we need to make sure that we protect these individuals who have been diagnosed with Down syndrome from not being aborted, to not be able to have existence, to not be able to enjoy life like every other person who is born. It is an important existential question that we each face. Last year, at a press event, we also had Karen Gaffney, who had received an honorary PhD, as our keynote speaker. And here's a very important point that she brought up, and it's much more eloquent than I could ever state. Those of us with Down syndrome and our families face a very difficult future. We face a possibility of wiping out all of the tremendous progress we have made. Just as we are making so much progress, a whole industry has grown up focused on prenatal screening that would end our lives before we take our first breath. Now that you can test for Down syndrome before birth, there are many experts in the medical community that say this extra chromosome we carry around is not compatible with life. And I was there when she said this, and it had this emphasis, not compatible with life. After everything we have done, I would say we are more than compatible. We are what life is all about, and our lives are worth living, and our lives are worth learning about. This is an existential question put forth before policymakers. Who gets to decide what is a good life? I would also intimate to many of you that the founders of the Special Olympics, Eunice and Sergeant Shriver, longtime Democrats, were amongst others who intimated that American society had to relook at what it was doing with abortion, and that it was taking away the dignity from so many folks that never got to have a life. In Pennsylvania, in the Abortion Control Act to date, there's a prohibition that you cannot have an abortion based on sex selection. The Down Syndrome Protection Act recognizes the equal rights of these individuals who are to be born with or are already born with Down syndrome. And it wants to protect the existence of these individuals so that they too can have meaningful lives just like you and me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for those words. Next, I would like to introduce our advocate in the Senate for the Down Syndrome Protection Act, Scott Martin.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here, standing along with my colleagues in the House and Senate. And, you know, I can remember the disappointment last year. I know and Speaker Turzai and I were in a lot of communication coming down the pike, but I can't tell you, within days of that session ending, our recommitment to getting right back up on that horse and working together again to get this bill done. And obviously, we're picking up new allies in this. I cannot begin to say what it means to me when I see these faces here who show up time and time again to tell their story. Caden, who dresses better than any of us. If you haven't seen the back of Devin's head, man, he is bold. I love it, you know? Why don't you turn around, Devin? Let me see the back of your head. Yeah. You know? You have to do that to me at some point. Makayla, I can tell you how impressed I am to hear you speak, and as bright as that jacket is, let me tell you, your smile and your spirit are 1,000,000 times brighter.
Thank you.
God bless you. And Chloe. Chloe certainly is no stranger to being up here at the Capitol, and her work to get Chloe's Law passed in 2014 and working with her family. If you have the ability to follow them online as they all work together to take their message to the United Nations and across this country, telling the story of them being everyday people who live their lives no different than you do, than I do, than so many of us do. You hear remarkable stories of things that most of us will never do, like swimming the English Channel. But I think about my friend Kyle, who works at the Home Depot, training other employees on how to give advice on home improvement. I think of some of my constituents who I have at Millersville University who have Down syndrome, who are exploring to get their own college degree. I think of people in the workforce every day to take care of themselves, to live independently. This is beyond just a debate about abortion. I make no mistake about it, as a lot of folks on this stage, we're very much in the fight for life in this country and around the world. But this is actually something that's more sinister, and this is a practice of eugenics. And I ask you, no different than years ago when they said you can't look at a picture of a child in the womb, and just because of what its gender is, when what you see and whether or not you want that or not is going to say that's my cause to get an abortion. And then here come prenatal tests to show what's going on in that womb. So for families can know, has directly led to 90% of pregnancies with Down syndrome around the world being terminated, wiped out, as if it would be some sort of problem or burden that they will place on the rest of us. I think everybody up here can remember just a year and a half ago, this glowing report from Iceland, how they basically were throwing their flag in the ground saying, we in essence have eradicated Down syndrome. They were exterminating people. What's next? As technology and science advances, as we see people being able to identify genes that are predisposition to cancer, is that what we're going to take up next? To spare this child of a miserable life and battling cancer? Where does it stop? Predisposition to addiction, male pattern baldness, height. Is that the kind of society that we want to live in? And I've heard so many arguments of, oh, well, if you were more focused on just wanting to take care of children after they are born, well, let me tell you something, as someone who's worked in that field. A, you can remove the predisposition that every pregnancy results in a birth into a government program. And second, in my time as county commissioner, it was my experience that some of the best funded programs for early intervention or people with developmental disabilities were exactly those programs. But that is not what it's about. It's about their lives. It's about what they mean to these families and what they mean to our world. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. And this movement is growing. It's not going to stop. I, for one, and everyone on this stage will refuse to live in a world where prenatal decisions that lead to eugenic practices are going to be okay. So I want to thank everyone for coming out here today. This obviously is just the kickoff to what we're going to get done and get this push. We're not going to go away. Down syndrome is 100% a life worth living. And to steal a quote from my good friend Chloe, let's embrace, don't erase. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Martin, for your passion on this issue. I would like to welcome up to the podium our Health Committee Chairwoman, Kathy Rapp, and my Pro-Life Caucus co-chair to share a few words.
Thank you, Kate, Mr. Speaker, and all of the legislators here today who are willing to take a stand for life and all of the families, the outside groups who are here to support us as legislators, and our wonderful young people who have done so many things in their accomplished lives. Just being here today in the Pennsylvania Capitol, supporting us and sharing with us their accomplishments, their right to have a life worth living. You know, as chairman of the bipartisan House Pro-Life Caucus and the House Health Committee, it is tragic, absolutely tragic, to review statistics such as many as 9 out of children diagnosed in utero with Down syndrome or aborted in the United States. It is also tragic to realize from 1973 to today, we have aborted in this country over 60 million children. 30 million little boys, 30 million little girls in our country. It is tragic, it is grievous. So in Pennsylvania, we refuse, as pro-life legislators, to join the rabid rush that other states have chosen to eliminate our unborn children, some even up to the moment of birth and after, such as our state just to the north of us, because basically for any reason. But our bill before us, House Bill 321, is about protecting those with Down syndrome as we protect children from being part of that abortion statistic just on the basis of sex selection. That's what this bill is about. It's a pretty simple bill in its language. It just puts a little comma after sex and says, people with Down syndrome, we're going to protect those children. And I'm very proud to stand here with my fellow legislators, our pro-life legislators, and our outside groups, our young people, who are the face of great accomplishments. And as the speaker mentioned, last year, we had a young woman here who swam the English Channel. How many people in this room have done that? How many have achieved that in their lifetime? How many have been a part of a pageant sitting in this room? What great accomplishments we see if we see people as people and people who have a life worth living. So today, I just want to leave with you. I don't want to be repetitious of other speakers. But what should never be denied is the fact that people with Down syndrome and other disabilities have contributed much to our society and will continue to do so when we finally recognize that each of our lives is worth living. There's simply no justifiable or convenient excuse for aborting an unborn child diagnosed with Down syndrome. I want to leave you with a verse from Deuteronomy. See, I set before you today life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life that both you and your children may live. Thank you for everyone here today. My thanks to everyone here in our great state on this stage who support pro-life. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Rep, for supporting us here today. To close out today's event, I would like to introduce Kurt Kondrich and his daughter Chloe, whose life mission it is to advocate for those with Down syndrome. Their message has been very well received here in the halls of the Pennsylvania House and Senate, and their advocacy has resulted in Chloe's Law, which helps Pennsylvania parents and families by providing relevant information upon the prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome. Chloe has her own foundation, which provides resources, support, and assistance to children with Down syndrome and their families. Chloe and her dad also work to restore a culture of life for individuals with Down syndrome and advocate for the policies like the Down Syndrome Protection Act before us today. Their message is very short, it's simple, yet very powerful. Embrace, don't erase. Thank you. Chloe? Thank you.
you, sweetheart. Thank you, Representative Klunk, and I want to thank all the policymakers that are here today, Speaker Turzai, Representative Rep, Senator Martin, Representative Marshall, and all, Senator Kristen, everybody who's here today. I just thank you for being part of what I say is an historic movement. You know, if we were here in the Pennsylvania Capitol in the 1840s, we'd be up here speaking about the fact that there are human beings down the road being sold because of the color of their skin, and we'd be doing everything possible to stop that. If we were in Germany and it was 1940, we'd be up here speaking about the eugenic movement against a group of people because of their religious affiliation and the postnatal eugenic movement against them. My daughter Chloe was born in 2003, and during that pregnancy, we were told we were high risk to have a child with Down syndrome. Now, I was a police officer for 20 years, and I know the word risk doesn't connotate a very good visual. Chloe was born, we had no prenatal tests, but I did kind of question, why do you keep pressing these? And the responses I heard from many parents was, so you can make a decision. And I inquired, what is that decision that you say we can make? Well, the decision is whether you want to keep your child or not. And we knew we were having a daughter. Chloe was already named in the womb. My son was excited to have her. So basically, as a police officer in these medical places, they're telling parents that you have the option right now to commit a prenatal death sentence upon somebody who's completely innocent, who's committed no crime, who has done nothing wrong other than the fact they don't meet the cultural mandate for perfection. Well, when Chloe was born, we got a postnatal diagnosis of Down syndrome, and as Senator Martin talked about, we plugged into the services, early intervention, all the amazing things that these children are doing, and focused on her abilities. And I would, when I was a police officer, I tell people during my 20-year career, I never recall having a call where a person with Down syndrome was committing an act of malice, committing an act of violence, was bullying somebody, was a suicide bomber, going on a school shooting. It's never happened. I have police officer friends across the country who will confirm that. As a matter of fact, these individuals, Chloe will get upset if you take her iPad when she's listening to Big Time Rush, but she does not. She will not formulate malice. She doesn't care if you're Republican or Democrat. She doesn't care if your hair's purple, if you got tattoos, she doesn't care. She'll love you because you're a human being. And isn't that the reason that God put us here, is to love each other and to break down these barriers? These children really are messengers to break down the toxicity that exists in our culture today, that has just put us behind so many walls and so many things. These individuals, after, like I said, they don't care. They don't care where you're from. If you live under the bridge, if you live in a mansion up the street, they will love you because you're human. I actually wrote an article once. You know, we celebrate World Down Syndrome Day tomorrow because of the extra chromosome these children have, and I wrote an article once that Adam and Eve did have Down syndrome until the devil stole the extra chromosome. And now the devil is utilizing the instrument of abortion to trick our society into believing that these individuals are not worthy to be here. Because the devil knows that once they arrive here, the light, the goodness that they're going to bring to our society when it needs it more now than ever, the devil knows that he has to intercept them prenatally to get this job done. So we're here today to speak up for the Down Syndrome Protection Act, which is the end of this genocide, which is the end of the silent eugenic movement. And you know, as a matter of fact, what's interesting, this month in the state of Pennsylvania, and I want to salute Governor Wolf for that, he declared Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, and we support that unilaterally with him. As a matter of fact, I have some beautiful pictures over there when Chloe met with Governor Wolf when I chaired the Early Intervention Advisory Committee and told him about embracing, not erasing kids with Down syndrome. And in that proclamation from our governor about this being Disability Awareness Month, that we're making sure that all people with disabilities are valued members of society, that we value what is important to people with disabilities and their families. We recognize the many accomplishments and contributions of people with developmental disabilities. Well, you've heard a few of them today, and they're numerous if you research it. So our governor in our state of Pennsylvania states that he encourages all citizens to support Pennsylvanians with developmental disabilities and their families in all aspects of Pennsylvania community life. And I read that and I thought, that's exactly what this law is going to do. The Down Syndrome Protection Act will do all those things that this Disability Awareness Month is doing. And we're here today and we're asking that in Pennsylvania that we would end the ultimate extreme form of prejudice, bigotry, exclusion, discrimination, profiling, and really you could sum it up as a hate crime. There's no greater hate crime than an individual being identified, targeted, and terminated because the culture says they don't belong here. So I want to once again thank everybody here for coming out to this, I call this a historic event. This is an event that you all look back on one day that you were part of, that's going to move history, that's going to be, you know, it's going to start a tidal wave to end this eugenic movement. And as Senator Martin said, who's next? How about an autism test in a couple months? How about one for depression? How about one for ADHD? How about OCD? My wife knows I'd be gone then. How about one for whatever? So let's put an end to this. Let's restore a culture of life here in Pennsylvania where everybody is welcome, where everybody's included, and where we embrace and don't erase individuals with Down syndrome. Thank you. God bless you, and thank you for coming out today.
Thank you, Kurt and Chloe. And thank you to everyone who joined us here today. We truly have a responsibility to protect those who don't have a voice. We have a responsibility to stand up against eugenics, and we have a responsibility to stand up to say that that baby with Down syndrome has a right to life and should not be discriminated against in the womb. As we have clearly seen here today, and in so many ways in our daily lives across Pennsylvania and this world, individuals with Down syndrome live lives full of dignity, full of so much value and so much love. We must embrace these lovable human beings for the amazing individuals they are, and not allow policies that erase them from existence. These lives are truly worth living. Thank you.